Lost Signals present Countdown to Justice, where we pit Batman versus Superman. 7 rounds, 7 episodes examining 5 decades of these two iconic superheroes represented on celluloid, in anticipation for the upcoming Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. Which superheroes film series will emerge victorious? Stay tuned and find out.
Okay, we are here tonight with round 2 of Countdown to Justice. I'm Rich Perry, and I am joined by Chris Morgan.
Good evening.
Luis Duran.
Hello, how's it going?
And tonight we're going to be talking about the second outing for both Batman and Superman. We got Batman Returns, where he goes against the Penguin, Catwoman, and capitalist Max Schreck. And Superman 2, where he goes against General Zod and his crew.
So one's fighting against fascism and one's fighting against corrupt capitalism?
Yeah.
All right.
Capitalist villain, as they said in the information or the background of the movie on Amazon.
Yeah, a little info blurb. So I guess we'll start off with Batman Returns. Let's start with Lou.
Yeah, so this round we decided to switch it up and go with Batman Returns first, and it did not. It succeeded to disappoint. Probably not as much as the first one, because I think we were all expecting this from Tim Burton. Of course, he continued his themes of Circus of Freaks, starting right off the bat with Pee Wee Herman and his wife keeping Oswald Cobblepot in a black cage.
Yeah.
Which kind of went in hand when they put him in a black carriage. What is that, bassinet? And then tossed him into the zoo.
Yeah, tossed him into the
the little stream.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell.
It's an incredibly buoyant bassinet too. Like it's almost like they didn't want to go through with killing him.
Yeah.
They felt enough compassion to tie a belt around it, so he, I guess, didn't drown.
They want him to freeze to death at being in
Yeah.
snowy Christmas time.
I still wanted it to be a slow death.
Yeah. They had to go back and, get to their martinis.
Yeah.
It's to go back
Not quite mustache twirling, but martini swirling, so.
Nah.
Yeah, it was very weird because I was trying to see a connection with the circus that they were going for and the Penguin, and I guess they kind of fleshed that out with the freak show that I really I couldn't find much substance on. I guess he was a part of the freak show at some point, and then he disappeared. How would that go? Did anybody catch any of that?
No.
Bruce was looking through newspaper clippings, and it was kind of shoehorned in there, and then Alfred kind of did his thing and kind of disrupted the whole detail of what was going on with that.
Yeah.
But I mean,
he derailed him with the Vichy Soir.
It was extravagant to the point of it was just laughable. So many crazy things going on.
I have to hand it to him for being able to put together not only a circus of freaks, but ones that were entirely made out of engineers that were able to just as soon as the first time they find the Batmobile, they immediately hack into it to take down its armor and just take the whole thing, strip the whole thing down, put it back together.
Oh yeah, not a problem in the world.
No.
With that and rigging up the penguins and all these crazy umbrellas.
They did this without the internet too. That's even more impressive. Yeah. Nowadays they're
Yeah, hack the Batmobile. No big deal. You can hack drones. You can hack the Batmobile. Yeah. It's very easy. But back then, I give them credit. I mean, they tore that thing apart.
And they used the spare parts to turn it into one of those quarter machines.
Yes.
For outside the.
And I said this during the film. I have to give him props for having the time and making the effort to put a little Batman ride sticker.
Yeah.
On the little coin slot.
That was pretty fun.
It's the right touch of villainy.
Yeah. It's I have to say, I haven't seen this movie in its entirety since 93. I was trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 22 years. And holy shit, this movie, I can't wait for the Schumacher movies. This movie, I have to say, for anybody who may have been pissed off of my personal, the rest of us probably, trashing the first film, I'm going to give it a little bit of a reassessment. I think I gave it a D last time. I think I'm going to bump the first one up to probably a C-, because this is just fucking dreadful. It is awful. And it's boring. It's like Attack of the Clones with slightly better dialogue. I mean, it's just so boring.
I actually was less bored with this one than I was with the first one.
Really?
A little bit, yeah.
I
I felt the pacing was a lot better.
I just wanted this one to end, and it wouldn't end. It just kept going.
Like it had its dragging parts. Like especially anytime Catwoman and Penguin got together, it was just weird.
Completely unnecessary, totally weird. They kept trying to. Burton kept trying to sexualize almost every scene for some reason, and it's kind of a running theme that was from exactly, like things like that, and it was just totally, tongue in cheek. They knew exactly what they were saying. There was no double entendre. It was just.
Can you even call that a double entendre?
Yeah, it was just so blatant that it's so off-putting, and it's just all the characters. It just really skeeved me out. Like it just.
I'll tell you what saved that for me. You guys didn't watch it with my wife because we're watching that scene in particular where Catwoman's waiting for Oswald Cobblepot, and that's where he's like, "That's the pussy I'm looking for." She looks at me and she goes, "Yeah, I think that's the model for Frank Reynolds from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia." All of a sudden, once I saw him as Frank Reynolds, the Penguin became less skeevy because I just thought of Frank Reynolds.
See, he didn't really die at the end of this movie. He just faked his death and started a bar in Philadelphia.
He faked his death.
Had some plastic surgery. Just
his hands all fixed up.
Hey, you never know. The contamination from the Merck company might have just set him straight.
Yeah, that's true.
Flying down there, which I would be totally fine believing that. I don't know. If we can add substance to this, that's totally fine with me.
I have to say I actively hate this movie. I mean, I can't really give it I can only give it so low a score, and that's why I kind of bumped up the last movies, because Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Christopher Walken look like they're all trying with the material that was given to them.
Oh, definitely.
Michael Gough as Alfred was fantastic as usual. Danny Elfman's score was wonderful, and the song he co-wrote with Susie and the Banshees was likewise wonderful. Okay, so I can't hate the film because of those elements, but I can hate it for pretty much everything else.
Yes.
I was watching this and I was thinking two things. Burton likes freaks because he's like this goth. He thinks he's like freak. What he should have done instead of giving him this property, and considering, the first film he should have made instead of getting this property was to remake Freaks, the movie Freaks from he could have done that in his Edward Gorey Freaks, and at the end he could have broken the fourth wall with all the freaks saying, one of us, like actually going to the audience, and then fade to black. It'd been nice. Yeah. And then since he named Christopher Walken's character Max Schreck, and all of Batman's silhouetted when he puts his cape up ready to fly is definitely like inspired by Dracula, they should have given him Nosferatu to remake. So, he could, just do the Count Orloff thing like Max Schreck did, and F.W. Murnau's, because that's who he named after. Max Schreck played Count Orloff in F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu. Is a silent movie. And so that was like the in joke. So to me, it's just like he has all these Edward Gorey elements. I mean, like Cobblepot with the umbrella and his shape, which definitely did not look like padding. It's his hips or anything didn't change when he was. I mean, it was just him. They didn't even
still fitted fat suit.
Yeah, it was definitely like there's like pillows under that thing. So they gave him the wrong property. They should, if you just remade, Nosferatu and Freaks, I think these films would be better.
So you think he was channeling like the movies that he wanted to make into Batman instead of actually making a Batman movie?
Well, I think it shows. I mean, he literally took the characters' names and created a story around that, with Catwoman literally being swarmed by cats the first time she was tossed out a window. like in some kind of weird. I mean, it's probably sexualized in some way, but also with Penguin, literally raised by penguins, like it doesn't fit the narrative of the comics in at all. I mean, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm missing something, was there at some point that he was raised by penguins?
No.
It was really like,
Cobblepot's a Cockney.
Yeah.
He's not even, he's not even from the United States.
He's like he's a mobster, and he's all about the underground, and this is totally just out of left field. It's all melodramatic. Like, there's clear good and bad, and it just doesn't. Even Michelle Pfeiffer, that kind of is maybe both sides of the same coin. It just doesn't. She just didn't have the right material for her, because I think she was totally fine. She was a redeemable character in my opinion.
Yeah, it seemed like she didn't really have much of a purpose really to be in the film or to be an antagonist for Batman. Like, then what was the reasoning she gave, that he showed her up?
Yeah, pretty much that he burned her and that he put up a fight for some reason. Like,
she had this weird theme. And as I said, I think all the actors really tried with the material they were given, because there's nothing wrong about any of their performances. It was how their characters were written. But I thought it was neat at first where the woman is being mugged and Catwoman saves her, and then she's like, "Oh, thank you so much," and she, Catwoman grabs the victim and goes, "You make it so easy for them." I'm like, "Oh, that's nice." Catwoman's got this feminist thing, kind of be her motivation, that'd be great. And they just kind of picked it up and would drop it off and pick it up whenever it suited this. And there's no continuity with that.
No.
But, Michelle Pfeiffer really, really tried during this. She did a good job.
Definitely did.
You cannot complain about the acting for any of this.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. I mean, if we could throw this in there, I don't know if you caught it, but Shrek's son, Walken's son, at one point imitates Walken's way of speaking, which I don't know. I hope he kind of, if there's trivia out there somewhere that, or somebody knows if he did that ad-libbed or if he was like coached to do it by Burton. I thought it was just a brilliant thing. It happens maybe 2-3 seconds, and it's one of those things that like it kind of it impressed me by just how memorable some of these characters were. Whereas in the first film, it was all like they were all very one-dimensional. Besides the main characters, even I would say Joker,
Alfred,
pretty much everyone was one-dimensional. Yeah,
I do love the relationship between Alfred and Bruce, because it can, at times, it can seem like it's very passive-aggressive between the two of them.
Yeah,
like they're just like trying to mess with each other constantly throughout the movie.
You know what would be if the films were more about Bruce Wayne and Alfred.
Yes.
Because Michael Gough and Michael Keaton are just so good together. I mean, you're absolutely right. They're so good together.
But it seems like at least for these two movies, like the movies have never been about like that, like Bruce Wayne or Batman, really. Like Batman seems like almost like a kind of a way to keep the plot going.
Well, both films are actually about the villains.
Yeah, more so than anything else.
They both start pretty much. Well, not Batman, but at least Penguin. He got what, 8, almost 10 minutes. He got the credits. He got his origin story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then finally he gets. We see Alfred walking through, and you see the hands of the Penguin before he does this whole, Circus of Freaks thing. Yeah,
and I didn't really time it, but it seemed like they finally brought in Batman around the same time that they did in the first one.
Yeah,
like they took their sweet time with bringing him in,
which is fun. Like, it's called Batman Returns. It should have been called, Intro to the Penguin or something like that, or something that it's weird that they're throwing Batman out there when you're focusing so much on the villains. Like, I understand you have to set up, future villains and everything like that. With Michelle Pfeiffer, her origin story with Shrek and everything like that, but there could have easily been a better way to execute that. Well, having Batman incorporated in that, or even Bruce Wayne, especially with Max Shrek, having their interactions were actually pretty funny to see. Seeing two tycoons kind of going at it. Mm-hmm. One guy's thing, he came up with it himself, and then him seeing the Bruce Wayne, the guy that kind of inherited money.
Yeah, that was interesting. The thing is, and you bring up really good points, is Burton in these films throws away a lot of scenes that could be better. And that scene in particular, that scene was good, but it could have been a lot better. It could have been a little, it's like with the Alfred scenes. They can be so much better because the chemistry's there.
Yeah.
The material's there. And one scene that I was thinking about was the dancing scene where Catwoman, where Selina and Bruce realize who each other is.
Yes.
And the Susie and the Banshee song's playing. And it reminded me so much of the cathedral scene where Joker's dancing with Kim Basinger. And in both scenes, those scenes could have been shot so much better. They could have been, but instead, you've got this ball scene and they set up like Selena Kyle, is make way for her, and she's kind of tweaking out like she's like, and Basinger in the first one's just kind of limp. I mean, here's two scenes you really could, you could hit the throttle on the drama. You can hit the throttle on the cliche. You can move the cameras and make them swoop and do all that crap and just really sink your teeth into it because all the pieces are there. But then again, as you said with the two tycoons and the Alfred and Bruce things, I mean, it's just thrown away. I just don't think he gave a shit with either one of these films. I think Warner Brothers said, we'll let you make Edward Scissorhands if you make this one. Seriously, because after Superman Returns, I think his next film was Ed Wood, which is a fantastic movie. With Johnny Depp and Martin Landau. Yeah. It's a great movie, but this movie and Batman just suck.
I just don't think he enjoyed the material.
I don't think so either. I don't think
and he got shows in his work.
Yeah, he probably just wanted to just make it in his own way. I mean, if you think about it, prior to this, we had the Batman TV series and the Adam West Batman also. There wasn't much to work with unless he read the comics, which I'm pretty sure if he did, he just ignored a lot of it.
I think he refused to.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he did just refuse. And if Batman Returns was just, store plots that he thought he could just, throw together and see what stuck, and a lot of it didn't.
I just don't think. I agree. I don't think he cared. I think he was just handed the material, and he's just like, "Oh, Batman's goth. Oh, I got it. Here's the approach." Because that was. I don't know how to. These movies are just so lackluster. There's so much potential that's just. It's got to be apathy. That's the only way you can explain these two stupid films.
True, because there's just there were storylines that could have kept the relationship between Bruce and Shrek, their antagonism, could have played that up more. I think it would have been better. If he had decided to make a Batman film, show more of those two sides of Batman, because he has that conversation with Selina, where he talked about how the reason him and Vicky broke up is because he couldn't decide which side was him personally. Is he Batman? Is he Bruce? And how to make find a bridge between the two. And I think it would have been better to do a movie based or following that. And instead, he's just he just gave that one line and then.
Well, that would have been but that goes with understanding the characters. Because that's what's interesting about the comics, and I think we discussed this last time, is that Batman, the cool thing about Batman is Batman couldn't be Batman without all the other people in his life. He would be a vigilante. I mean, he could become... The one thing they got right in this movie was when they said, we'll make him what he hates the most. We'll make him to us, where they're going to frame him. Okay, which is the only plot motivation I could see in this movie,
which was easily forgiven. How did that
It was because the Ice Princess was a moron and she was just collateral damage. Nobody cared about it. I know they all immediately opened fire on him.
Yeah, they immediately opened fire on him. But then, as soon as he plays that recording, the remix of that recording, where he's DJing, and broadcasting that over the Cobblepot speech. It's the crowd just immediately turns on Cobblepot and just forgets about what apparently Batman did.
And they were serving out vegetables. Everybody had tomatoes, lettuce in hand, and that goes right with the exact thing. It's just
didn't they do that last film too?
With
the throwing of the vegetables at some point, or is that?
I don't think in Batman though. But if we could go back for a second on the, with the double identity. That would have been a great thing. I think Burton probably excuse me, I don't know who the screenwriter is. If you, I'm not sure who wrote the screenplay, but I know Burton had his 2 cents added. But the double identity was across almost all the characters. Bruce Wayne with Selina and Cobblepot.
Definitely Cobblepot.
Cobblepot was like, that was the selling point, and I was actually very impressed that yes, he was showing very redeeming qualities. Like he wants to know who he is.
Yeah,
he wants to be a part of the real world instead of living in the sewers. And
that was
like,
motivation.
Yeah, it was like perfect motivation. And then come later on, it was like a red herring. He knew who he was, and he wanted to steal all the firstborn.
Right.
Sons of Gotham, or was it children or sons or
sons whatever. It made no sense. But that was the thing. But that is what I'm saying when you have to credit the actors for this, because Danny DeVito is a very underrated actor. He really, really is. And I think even under all that ridiculous, Penguin stuff, when he does try to redeem himself and figure out who he is, there is pathos there. You really feel for this character, and that's that amongst the other things that are wasted on this movie, is you going back to what you guys said about the relationships, about the dual identity. Now, if they really explored that, where you have, because that's the one cool thing about Selina and Bruce in the comics and in other interpretations of it, they know who each other is, and they're they're two sides. They're literally two sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. And they could have the stage was set. This is probably why I hate this movie so much. Well, because the stage was set for them, and again, you had Alfred and Bruce, and then and then you had Bruce with Max, and then you had Cobblepot. And you had all these dynamics of dual identities. Because Shrek wanted to look altruistic, but he is really this horrible person. And you've got all these dynamics, and if they played up Bruce Wayne being kind of more of a scoundrel, like he's supposed to, like in year one and so forth, where he really just kind of is a little. He's a philanthropist, but he's also kind of played as kind of a womanizer. Yeah, if they really just even, I don't really care about the plot of the fucking film. Is if they'd worked these relationships, then get whatever motivation you can just to get us from scene to scene with these characters.
The movie would have wrote itself if they had followed that.
We should run this movie.
We should.
I think me at 22 and however old you guys are, 8, 9?
Yeah.
We
could have written this movie better.
But I like that you mentioned the Catwoman and Batman are, part of the same, two sides of the same coin, you said, right?
Yeah.
And you see that so often in their interactions, but they don't see it within themselves unless they just didn't catch it within the context of I'll give you an example. When we see Batman kill again, at least two. We counted at least 2 people.
At least 2.
Set one on fire, which was gnarly. I gotta admit, that was pretty metal.
That was fantastic.
And he did it with he turned the car around with some kind of a
turnstile.
Yes.
Well, the car can't turn around because of the
So it had to have something there. So
it's like something straight out of Speed Racer.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly what it was too. But when Selina decides to kill somebody, he's just like, "No, you can't do that." Yeah. And when he straps people with bombs
and throws them down the
sewer. Lights people on fire, blows up warehouses.
Or the thing was, he remote controls the Batmobile. And
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Kills all those people.
A lot of people dead.
Releases all the toxic waste into the.
But what I was saying to Lou, when he was saying that Selina, he was Bruce Wayne. He wasn't wearing the Batman mask. It's like when he's Batman, he's a psychotic killer.
Yeah.
When he's Bruce Wayne, he's remorseful for his actions and trying to keep people from going down the same road.
And if they explore that'd be perfect too.
Yeah, all right.
Selina would be able to go back and forth too.
Catman. Right. If you're going to switch a character of Batman, then do that. Make Bruce Wayne this one guy and make Batman a psychotic vigilante. And if you're going to make Selina Kyle twitchy, make Catwoman kind of like the opposite of the psychosis.
Yeah. Cool, collected, and
which is kind of what they did, but
except for all this, the flips and the.
Yeah, the flips, that was just weird.
It was just a little much. It was a little heavy-handed. But I pretty much just enjoyed just about almost all the scenes with Catwoman, though. Because they were interesting. I mean, sexualized to a great degree. I mean, if you think she's dressed in pretty much latex, she's got a whip, she's got, her eyes
very S&M.
Very S&M.
And then every time she ran into Batman, she stabbed him.
Yeah,
like, literally every meeting she hurt him in some way.
It's her literally penetrating him, which he did not get to do to her.
No,
so it was one of those things, like she repeatedly did it to him, and it was one of those things like it was awesome, but I know like I don't think it was with intent. Like I can't imagine sitting there like, well, no, let's do this, and like,
well, it's that one scene where they're on the roof, and at first I thought she'd like kicked him or punched him in the nuts. But when they did the insert shot, it was into the chest, or to the stomach. When they're on the roof, and that might have been the one.
When she stabbed him in the side.
Yeah, she was feeling him up, trying to find the softest spot in his armor, and then got him right there.
Yeah, and I thought she grabbed his nuts and was gonna, give him a.
But you saw him; he was ready to go. Like he thought he was getting some on the roof because he had that smile going, and then she's just like, and then he just kicked her ass off the roof.
Use it to her advantage. I mean, that's what he did too. He got Vicky Vale drunk in the first. In the first movie twice. You mentioned, I forgot about the champagne bottle at the end of the movie, but she was slosh.
Alfred, go wait for Vicky in the alley. Don't forget the champagne. She likes. She said,
keep it ice cold.
She wasn't even mad for that long after she found out he wasn't drunk either. She's like, you took advantage of me, and then just turned into clingy girlfriend after that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I forgot about the first film. Are we at least going to try to love each other? I mean, like, you've known them like 3 days, and you've got this thing, and he's conflicted. I mean, I'm going to say about this, like Vicky Vale, I did not understand that relationship. At least in this movie, you can understand it, even though they're not quite the right characters. You can kind of understand. Bruce and Selena. You see the duality with them. It was there. They went halfway. They don't even know if they went halfway there, but it was there.
It's almost like they turned away. They turned away specifically because the chemistry was good. It was too good of a story.
Burton just didn't give a shit. There's no other way. Burton just did not give a shit. He wanted Warner Brothers to give him money for Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood, and he agreed to do these films. I mean, we're talking about it now, and I don't hate this movie nearly as much. But when I was watching it this afternoon, I'm like, oh my god, fucking end. So, like, I think this movie is much better, for me at least, in the abstract.
Yeah, see, looking back now, I mean, I had a lot of fun with it, just watching it. Critiquing wise, it's gonna be rather harsh.
It's painful.
It was. There was redeeming parts, and there were some things that I was totally fine with. But yeah, overall, it just left a bad taste in my mouth. It was just not one of those things.
I mean, I don't understand I don't understand the penguin eating fish. I mean, what the fuck?
It tried so hard to make all the characters try to be. I mean, with Michelle Pfeiffer drinking the milk out of the carton, which I thought was a lovely scene, but it was just a little much.
Almost her spray painting all.
Yeah, the spray paint again.
That was her break. Her psychotic break.
Yeah,
She was painting black over all of her.
All the pink.
Yeah, all of her innocence. Like she was trying to black out her innocence.
Garbage disposal, putting the stuffed animals in the garbage disposal, destroying the dollhouse.
Yeah,
destroying her.
And then for
clothes.
some reason she has some latex outfit though, just lying around in there. It's in there. It was just in
the
closet, tucked away.
Yes. What was that latex?
Like
raincoat.
Raincoat.
It was a raincoat. But it was completely out of her character because you see she wears very bland colors, and then when you see her apartment, it's all pink, very princess-like.
It has motivational messages and everything.
If this movie had any depth of character or anything like that, one could say that maybe this was an aspect of her that she always had. That the raincoat was hidden away as a symbol of that. But there wasn't that much thought given to this, so I can't really even say that was any motivation there.
Yeah, so she beats herself up a lot in the first few scenes, repeating herself, the things that she said. She constantly trips over her own actions, missing out on the speech, giving herself cues on reminders on the on the machine so that because she knows that she's gonna falter in her interactions. But
that doesn't make any sense either. If she's calling herself, I mean, it's not like Doctor Who or anything. If she's calling herself from the office to remind herself that she forgot something, why isn't she as she's after she calls herself going, oh, I gotta get this files?
Yeah.
Plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, plot.
Yeah, it's plot. Because
the plot says
at that point,
because she needed a reason to be there when Max Schreck got there to, for some reason, explain his evil. No, she explained his evil plan to him without realizing that she was setting herself up for a quick stop to the.
Yeah, this is what Doctor Who does when he doesn't want to cross his own time stream. He goes back, calls himself, okay, or he gets somebody else to do it for him. This made no sense. I mean, because there was no, there's no TARDIS to go back.
And it was weird because that scene, it was so out of place because does that capacitor ever have any?
No, they never talk about it for the rest of the movie.
Oh no! Once he decides Cobblepot's got to be mayor.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
like that'll be the deciding factor of him starting his capacitor, which I'm not sure would drain power from the city for some reason. I'm not.
Yeah, it would drain power.
Yeah, so he would, I guess, be able to control power. I guess that's all it was. He wanted. That's his capital. That's his resource would be power. Yeah.
So then, because they never mentioned it again, so we have to assume that it's still there, and his son's still alive. So I guess this is one of those villains that didn't really get away.
Yeah, well,
Well, yeah, he dies, and
But again, Batman, ultimately, Batman has a thing to jam the Penguins from launching their fireworks.
Yes.
And because those were some really nasty explosions that really could have taken out Gotham. And the Penguin gets it, launches them, and they target him. And then Batman tries to plead to Selina, and then she and Shrek kill each other. So basically, Batman's impotent. He does nothing at the end, really.
No.
He finds everybody, and I'm not saying Batman has to kill these people. Batman shouldn't kill these people, even though he's
already filled his quota for the movie at that point.
Yeah. Well, he cut down to 2 from 10. You got to give him credit for that. But I mean, what does he do? What does he do in this movie?
If anything, they catch him almost at every angle, and pretty much like you said, make him impotent, because there's almost no point. He doesn't save the Ice Princess lady.
No.
It exacerbates that. When he's on the date with when he's on the date with Selina, he almost exposes himself. Every time he's as Batman and Catwoman are on screen, he gets completely
taken off guard.
Yeah, and it's except that one time where he had to save her, and she still kind of got away and stabbed him. A lot of it would maybe just the first scene when they first encounter Penguin, and that was kind of also playing into his hands as well.
The one thing I thought was funny, or just I don't know, it was like a very video game moment. I mean, because I played all the Batman video, where you get the remote control, all the Arkham games, that were put out by Rockstar, and you've got the remote control Batarang at one point.
Yes.
And in this thing, he programs the Batarang to shoot, to go knock over these 4 criminals, and then they do Batarang vision, which is just dreadful because you could tell the camera's not making the bat. It's just it was like Jaws 3D where Jaws never actually came at you. It's just kind of like that. You could tell that this Batarang that was positioned in front of the camera didn't even come close to the people that are
What bothered me is that Batarang was taken out by the dog. That's the only thing that bothered me about that scene.
Classic dog.
Just fetches it, and then it's the dogs for the rest of the movie.
It brings up a good point. But hey, I would say they use that device all right later on to frame Batman. I was actually pretty like I said. That was I explained to Perry when we were watching. I was like this plot that he was trying to do to get Batman implicated on these charges, it was almost like the Joker does in Dark Knight. He sets up He sets up a kidnapping that's completely a facade.
Right.
He gets a batarang that has, the girl's blood on it. And who else would, if you're Batman and you leave something like that, of course,
yeah.
It's actually his. We saw him use it, and it's perfect to, set up a crime. They set up with the princess, falling down with all the bats coming out of the trees. I was perfectly executed. I would say, I was very impressed with that, because I totally did not remember that when I first saw it growing up. I mean, I wouldn't be paying attention.
See, I was sitting here going, well, it's, again, nice visuals, but it really doesn't implicate him any more than,
some guy being able to see him standing over the roof somehow.
I mean, there's a difference between, that and Batman handing the phone, handing the walkie-talkie to Commissioner Gordon and be like, call it in. It's just like, I killed those people. It wasn't quite, not quite the same gravity. And again, where's Commissioner Gordon through this whole film?
Oh man!
Although he was the only one that said don't shoot.
Yes.
So I'd say he gets some points back to a degree. But I was very impressed with the officers that were ready to shoot on sight, because I haven't seen any of that.
They were on point this entire movie.
Well, that was because in the last film they're like, you guys got there just in time to be thwarted by a bell that blocked the entrance to the cathedral. I mean,
Yeah, as much as Batman didn't do anything in this movie, Commissioner Gordon was definitely
more on his game.
Yeah,
which isn't really saying a whole hell of a lot.
Probably because he wasn't around as much as the first one, so we weren't exposed to his incompetence.
Yeah, somebody told him in the first film, he's like, "Who's in charge?" It's like somebody. Ever since the first film, probably has a little post-it on his mirror.
So
you're in charge.
Every day, wakes up to that.
You're in charge.
His daily affirmations. You're in charge.
You're in charge, Jim.
You're in charge, not Batman. Not Batman. You're in charge, Jim. Although, I mean, there's so many funny scenes that it's too bad we didn't get more Jim Gordon, but there were still so many good ones though, with the bat signal coming in through right behind him, and he just turns around.
That was a great shot.
It was a great shot.
That was a great shot.
It was very
hammy.
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, it's something I would expect in Adam West Batman.
What I want to know is how did those spotlights pick up the bat signal just being shot into the sky? Unless he's got a cord running from.
He's got Alfred up there on the roof.
With his binoculars out.
He's got his little satellites up there.
Yeah, he's got. Yeah, who knows? I mean, he was jamming frequencies. He was DJing. Yeah, DJ Batman.
He had the bat boat.
Yes, the bat boat. Oh my god! When it hit that bomb, did that flip and then landed properly?
That's on point. He was, to
give him props. You could tell by his reaction, though, that none of that was planned. He was just lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, whew.
Hey, resourceful to a fault. That's for sure.
It's really funny. It's like, we're talking about it now. It's weird. Again, I think I like this film better in the abstract, because when I was watching this film, I just had my, this movie won't end. And now we're sitting here talking about it. I'm like, all right, well, this movie's actually funnier. It's not better. I'm not.
Yeah, it's funnier.
It's one missed opportunity after the other one, and the first one, I mean, it was just dry. And the dialogue was worse in the first one, as bad as it was in this. It was actually worse. That are we going to try to love each other? It was just as bad as, and I'm gonna. It was just as bad as the Attack of the Clones. I thought we weren't going to love each other. This is the same kind of fucking bullshit, It's a shitty rating. But, no, this was definitely,
it's a better outing.
Yeah, this is, I don't know. At least this movie was shorter. Both movies feel like 6 hours, but at least this one is, in your length of your real-time life, shorter. So I guess, you don't lose as much of your life in this as you do at the Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, especially this one. It was paced much better, because at one point I was like, all right, well, this feels like right around the middle of the film. We're about to get, right into probably the middle of Act 2, start of Act 3, and start the denouement. Whereas the first Batman, I was like, I not sure where we are because the plot's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And then finally I'm like, okay, now I remember we're probably another half hour. And I'm like, a half hour too long. Like, it could easily just be condensed. But this one I thought, like the pacing was good. Enough that I wasn't waiting for it to be over. Like the first one, at least. Yeah, that's my opinion.
I don't know. The first one was pretty bland and pretty awful. I mean, I think I'm going to take my, they're both kind of shit, so I might, knock the first one back down to the D range. But
taking back the praise I gave the first one.
Because it was really dry. But as I was telling you guys earlier, was that I knew that the final conflict was in the zoo, and when they were chasing Cobblepot, and he jumped in the river or the stream or whatever that thing's supposed to be, whatever set that they built, where he ends up on the little ducky boat. I'm like, I was sitting here thinking, oh, thank God. And I'm like, oh crap, they've got the ballroom scene. God damn it, we're not over yet. So, to your point, at least there were peaks and valleys in this. At least there were indicators between acts, even if you wanted it to be over sooner. At least, there was more of a flow. The last one, they just kind of plopped you. They gave you a bowl of gruel and told you to sit there and stare at it. At least they put. I don't know. I have no analogy for this one, except it did remind me of Star Trek V, the one that William Shatner co-wrote and directed. Because it was not really Star Trek so much as William Shatner's universe for the bastardization of Captain Kirk. And this to me is it's just kind of like the same kind of ego thing. I mean, I don't think Tim Burton really gave a shit about the material. So instead, he decided to create a universe he wanted to live in. So instead of it being like with Star Trek V, if it had been any other property, it still would have been a shitty movie, but at least it would have been, William Shatner's shitty universe.
Yeah.
And the same with Burton. If he just didn't do this to Batman and did Freaks or Nosferatu or whatever he wants to do and create this universe, I'm not saying it would be any better, but at least it wouldn't be as offensive. You wouldn't be taking some beloved property and fucking with characters that you really like. Mm-hmm. I mean, even in Batman, there are very few villains in Batman. Well, there are a couple of villains in Batman that are kind of disposable. But with the Penguin, especially Selina and the Joker, you've got two of the most dynamic villains. I mean, the Joker's motivation is simple. Create chaos. He's always had a death wish of sorts.
Yes.
And then Selina is the same. She and Bruce are, like I had said before, two sides of the same coin. And those dynamics are really, really interesting. And it's just if you can't get those right,
you really shouldn't be trying.
I don't think he gave a shit. I really don't.
Shall we move on to Superman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should.
Talk. Yeah. Let's go.
So while Batman struggled with trying to find his main identity, Superman also had a chance to do that this go around. But I think his love for Lois was the catalyst for this one.
And circumventing the fact they couldn't get Marlon Brando back,
Yeah, clearly we saw a lot of cut footage we didn't see cut footage, but we noticed a lot was cut out. A lot of stand-ins were put in place. Plot kind of moved along without any indicators of what was going on. Some things kind of were just went away. I mean, it's mostly near the tail end, of course, but it was the whole breakup. I was totally left out as far as I know. I think we noticed that they went from Fortress of Solitude, flying away together, leaving Lex in the Fortress of Solitude, and then all of a sudden they're back at the Daily Planet, and they've apparently broken up. It's like Clark sent a
Dear John letter?
Yeah, Dear John letter. I was going to say text, but of course not at the time. But you just decided, I can't be with you anymore. And it's kind of out of character for Lois to be completely torn up about it.
Yeah, she was completely broken.
That makes no sense because right before he dropped her off, and we've just jumped to the end, but right before he dropped her off, she's like, "This is the last time I'm going to be flying with you." And he's like, "Don't say that, Lois. We can go anywhere you want." I'm like, I know that they're supposed to be, I don't really understand what's happening here.
Well, that's like, that could, I'm going to go back to the beginning, or not the beginning, but when he decides to give up his powers, like, why did he feel he had to give up his powers in order to have a relationship with Lois? Like,
because they had to set up how he... I figured this out while we were watching it, because it wasn't like he was without his powers for the whole movie. He's without his powers for like 10 minutes of the movie. But they had to set up how he was going to defeat Zod and Ursa and whoever the other guy was at the end. That's the only reason I can think of it. And it was interesting because, Richard Donner did direct basically the entire movie, and the studio said, suck it. And they had Richard Lester come in and direct it. And you can tell because the ones he directed, because all of a sudden Gene Hackman and E.G. Marshall, who play the Lex Luthor and the President, respectively, have voice doubles, and you only see them from the backs of their heads.
Yeah.
Valerie Perrine disappears. You could just tell, what parts were shot by Donner and which parts were shot by the replacement director. But Zod stole the show. I'm sorry.
Yes,
Zod and Ursa
Zod
stole the show.
I think he had the greatest one-liners, even more so than Batman. Even though Batman had that one really great one when he was fighting Selina, which is just like, I haven't eaten yet. He's like, eat floor.
Oh, yeah.
Slams her face into the ground. It was just high fiber.
Yeah. Those one-liners were perfect, but Zod stole the show.
Much better.
Well, the thing wasn't even just Zod, what he said. It was how he said,
there's so much conviction. You can see, you can sense the emotion. I mean, it was kind of, he was very straight, very stoic looking and everything, but when you heard the anger, it had resonance.
It's like, why do you say these things when you know I'm going to kill you for them?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great way.
And the way he said it, why do you say these things when you know I'm going to... He's like so matter-of-factly. And there was one time where he's on the building talking to Ursa, and she's just like, he cares about these people. And I can't remember what he said, but he didn't quite look at the camera, but he kind of turned his head and kind of looked, and his eyes kind of widened, where it was kind of like this jovial, slightly psychotic, where you weren't sure if this was an outtake where he was just kind of being sarcastic, or if he was just showing you that his character had this maniacal part of him. I mean, Terrence Stamp does a fantastic job. He should be in more. He should be in everything. I mean, he's just so good. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who probably. I do want to see the Donner cut now to see what was removed. But from, you could tell. I mean, because you could tell because, you'd have real sets, and then you'd have not even matte paintings. They're they're in a studio, and you could see they had the, so the effects were uneven, and they'd get really cheap. But no matter what happened, I mean, he was just a consummate professional throughout the entire thing. I mean, I give a lot of props to it, and I even say, I think Christopher Reeve and Margaret Kidder and Jackie Cooper, I think they, from what was some really ridiculous shit that, that you could tell was inserted in this, I think everybody, again, as to the Batman, I think everybody handled it like a professional. Mm-hmm. I just think Terrence Stamp was just a little bit better than everybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I have to say, though, it was just interesting seeing how they got Superman out of the way for Zod to do whatever it is that he was going to do. Well, I guess take over the world, but it's I guess the culmination of his and Lois's relationship, and to show why it wouldn't work. They didn't really explain too well why it wouldn't work.
But that's also why I wanted to see the Donner cut, because it seems like there's so many
things. There had to have been something missing, either conversation or something that they ran into, because the only thing we really saw was he became human, got his ass kicked for the first time in his entire life.
But
then just decided, I can't do this anymore.
But like with the Fortress of Solitude, we noticed that like with the part of the control panel that housed the crystals was blown up, you could tell the scenes where Gene Hackman wasn't in there, the set was one way, and then when Gene Hackman showed up, the damage, it wasn't just like some broken crystals. It was like, basically charred, flattened.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really pretty obvious. The content, there was no really real continuity on the set, and there's a lot of padding in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Where the three of them are using their super breaths to blow everybody around the product placement around the New York set.
That was a good unnecessary 5 minutes.
It wasn't even like them destroying that town in Idaho, because at least that was funny. But this one was just excuses for people to tumble around in front of KFC or Kentucky Fried Chicken, as it was once known.
Yes,
and because for a product placement, pretty much, Coke, Marlboro,
Lipton. See, this is what we saw. The scene was so boring. We saw the product placement.
But it's funny because it is a product of the time too. Like late 70s, early 80s. Like that's kind of what they did, and now we don't see any of that because it's so restricted. Especially with cigarettes. I mean, we saw so many people. Perry White, cigar in his mouth. Lois
chain smoking, like
chain
a fucking champ.
Yeah.
No, well, I was going to say when it comes to product placement can get really bad. I mean, we'll talk about that again when we get to Man of Steel.
Oh yeah.
The product placement in that is just vulgar, but
I really wanted to go to IHOP after that movie. Give me a short stack.
I don't know. I was sitting here thinking, oh my god, I wonder if we renewed our contract at Sears.
But besides those things, I mean, if we want to go into product placement, mise en scène though, I think with Superman by far beat Batman. If we were talking about just how a lot of besides the sets that were changed with from Donner directing, and what was the other, Lester, you said?
Lester, yeah.
Lester. You can easily see that the rooms have stories to tell. I mean, I'm not going to go much into it. If you watch Superman 2, the beginning is very telling with what's on Perry White's desk.
Yes.
When they're at Niagara Falls, Clark leans on I think it was a barrel that had a person that died that fell into that river in 1942, where Lois is on the other side of the screen looking over the rail because she's already caught on that Clark is Superman. And it's just, there were so many things. Also, I mean, even in the bedroom scene with the wedding, the wedding suite, bridal suite that they had, that they were across from each other. Lois is on the couch, or Lois is by the couch. No, this is where you're going to see Clark. And Clark sits on the bed, very clear in his intentions, and the bed starts moving. It's very it's alive. It's one of those things that almost every scene had so much to tell without ever getting you had to look for it to see it. I mean,
show don't tell.
Yeah, show don't tell. Whereas in Batman you have Michelle Pfeiffer just explaining everything to Christopher Walken, and he just needs to react for this the story to just keep going.
Yeah, that's true. Because in Batman the costumes are very elaborate, but the sets themselves, unless you're in Wayne Manor or have the whatever their set, the pseudo. I mean, because even Wayne Manor became a model as opposed to a real location at this time. Mm-hmm. They didn't really have. You're right. None of the interior sets had much story to tell. But Perry White, I mean, from working with the headlines at the beginning to various things. Yeah, everything about the Daily Planet, there was a story to tell. Just
I mean, that's one of those things that I caught on that really enriched the experience. I mean, because Superman has its faults, and I mean, before we delve into that, a lot of it, of course, is attributed to the different approaches with the two directors. But
and they brought somebody, because Mario Puzo wrote the first one. We all know him from The Godfather. He wrote the second one, but when they brought Lester in, they brought two people to work on the script in addition. So basically, they took his story and basically rewrote parts of it. So I mean, tonally, this thing was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, and you could tell. And I don't know if ILM and John Williams were too busy working on Star Wars ET and Raiders at that time. I can't really remember exactly in context when this all was. But, I could forgive, like, the effects, because this was 1980, so it'd be like Empire and Raiders.
Yeah.
I don't know if, I could forgive, like the effects if they had a different effects company, because ILM isn't what it is now, where they can work on like 4 films at once. I could forgive all that if the rest of the film wasn't so all over the place in terms of tone, in terms of, character. And because Superman, when he loses his powers and they go to the diner and he gets his ass kicked, Clark gets his ass kicked. After he whammies Lois with the, I can't believe, whatever psychic powers, look into my eyes and let me kiss you and you could forget everything about me.
Memory erasing kiss.
Memory erasing kiss.
Yeah.
Oh,
he goes back to the diner and picks a fight and beats that guy up. As much as Batman would not strap a bomb and push some guy down, a sewer, Superman would not go back and seek revenge.
No, especially not that way.
Yeah.
In such a petty little thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody kicking him in the shins.
Yeah, and that dude definitely would have had broken bones.
Yeah.
There was no way to sugarcoat that. You can't chuck somebody down.
Plus, he's got whiplash from the spinning stool.
Yeah. There's so many. They do.
And Superman exists in the world, and all these people are like, oh, this doesn't look anything like Superman,
Yeah. Yeah, they're just very. Well, obviously, we can tell there's not that many bright people in that. In that world.
What I did love about this movie, though, is they really went with like the Silver Age version of the comics, where every Kryptonian had new powers as the plot demands.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
because
absolutely,
Zod's crew just developed telekinesis out of nowhere.
Yeah, with the finger?
Yeah,
with
the floating finger.
Well, also with their eyes.
The eyes,
too,
yeah. His heat vision turned into a tractor beam.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It just took the double barrel shotgun and just like, okay, we're doing that now. Okay. I mean, and Superman with his cellophane
S shield, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Even the guy was like, okay.
It's
It was like, okay.
Family Guy did it best. It's like, what the hell was that? And he's like, I don't know. It's like everybody in that room was surprised. Like Lois is just like, you didn't tell me you could do that. Lex is just like, I don't even know why I'm here.
Okay, we have to rewrite the scene. Superman's got to do something. Hey, I got it. He pulls the S off his chest and it becomes cellophane. What's that mean? I don't know. Let's put in the film. It'll look cool. All right.
I got the cellophane S shield.
My kid got the Superman kite and it's a cellophane.
Just go out to the store. Get the Superman kite.
I was going to say, we'll go to the store.
I think that wasn't the most surprising thing about that. Is that after the big dude was wrapped up with it, it just disappears. Like it had it was served no purpose but to just confuse the shit out of him.
It dissolved.
Yeah, and then then they learned how to teleport within that second.
Happens, yeah.
And then he makes copies of himself.
Yeah,
to fight Zod and his crew.
There's like some very, very strange inconsistencies. I mean, one thing too that is like when they're fighting in the city. And Zod is trying to destroy the gasoline tanker.
Why does it take so long?
It takes so long, and then also Superman just uses a mirror to reflect it. So Superman can never shoot his lasers at a mirror because he would just. Yeah. Well, I guess it does happen in the comics, so I guess it does make sense. But I don't think they were going for that.
No.
In the sense, I think they were just going for it.
I was trying to do it one of those things to see if if Superman would react, or if it was just basically simple. Well, we're inside of a studio, and budget's not going to can't allow us blowing up a truck, because with all this funky stuff that happens, like with the teleportation and the multiple Supermans, Lex Luthor's not in those, and with the street scene was like obviously, and they had a block set, so I'm assuming that thing with the truck. The gas tank, and the laser, and the thing was all part of the reshoot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, since I'm assuming that it was Lester and the other 2 script doctors that came in and did this, I'm kind of like, it's kind of like, well, when do we start making sense with this part of the film? When we did these shots, when do we start making sense with these? So what's the point?
I guess after he turned back time, anything was just a go.
Yeah.
Yeah. which is something they kind of ignored in the credits, I think, right? It's the
Yeah.
one thing that they missed out. They kind of went through the whole they went through the whole the whole movie through the credits, or the first movie rather, in the credits of the second one, and then they just kind of gloss over the, spin the world back in time.
Because in this timeline, it never happened.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's the other thing is, going back to the beginning was they went back to the Krypton. When the three of them escaped. In the first film we were talking about, that's what the scene they opened on was the trial of these three.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, that was a pretty quick trial. And it's like, well, that's probably Jor-El's, closing arguments. So in this one, we've seen that it was a trap. And basically, so in this one, Krypton has no due process. You basically have that, we don't have the death penalty, but we have the Phantom Zone.
Which is a fate worse than death.
Which is a fate worse than death. And, what'd you say? They sacrificed somebody.
Yeah, they sacrificed some poor schlub who's just like standing guard over what they probably just told him to go over there and like watch this.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, I'm just gonna keep watch over it. They snap his neck.
Snap his neck,
and then they get trapped.
And
but so they don't believe in punishment, in capital punishment, but entrapment's totally okay.
Yeah.
Like they have no problem with trying to we can just trick you into it, and guilty by thought crime, pretty much.
Yes.
You are acting on it, but you didn't actually do it. Like it's not. It's very weird how they set that up. Whereas you could, I guess Chris mentioned we were watching that. Since you can't get Brando back, we got to just make it our own way and totally shit on what we just did in the first movie, which was totally perfect, which sets up Zod's hate for the House of L.
Yeah. Instead, it's just that you don't see him at all, and he just floats off cursing Jor-El's name.
It was kind of like Evil Dead 2. It's kind of like they couldn't get the rights to Evil Dead, so they rewrote the first movie in the first 5 minutes. Well, in the first movie of Superman, we've created this Krypton society, and in 10 minutes we give you a lot of information. Well, we can't get Brando back. We really need to throw all the exposition in there. Let's just fucking rewrite it. Who cares? This guy kind of sounds like Brando,
Yeah, with the he's just like,
we can get Susanna York in to throw up some expository dialogue.
That's the only good thing that came out of not having Brando is that he didn't hog the entirety of Krypton's memory drive that he sent with Kal-El.
Yeah, poor Kal-El. It's just like, hi, Mom. How you doing? Hi. Dad only let me record 2 things. One, to explain who your nemesis are, just in case. And number 2 is how you can have sex with a woman. Just in case.
I thought that was awesome how, the only other recording he had of her was her asking who his new girlfriend was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is his mom. But it also explains a lot what we'll see in Man of Steel. Mm-hmm. With the... whatever Jor-El is in that.
Moving hologram.
We have to give Russell Crowe more to do, so let's
turn him into a machine ghost.
Yeah. But it was kind of interesting that, in 1980, they had this thing where, the interactive hologram, the smart machine, which I thought was interesting. It's kind of hard for me at this point to really always be 100% immersed in the movie. I know from being, especially when I was in California, I learned, when I was a PA and learned, went to unofficially intern at this post-production house that my cousin worked in. Before that I was aware of all this stuff. Now I'm even more so. So there's part of me that's, there's always part of me that's thinking in terms of how this film's constructed behind the scenes. Also being a fan of music and being a fan of Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams especially, stuff like that's very hard for me to separate. So when I see this movie now and I see with Lex and Ned Beatty, where they have the hologram of them, the projector, where it looks like they're playing chess to fool the guards that they're not there, and this interactive machine with Lara, I'm like, these are cool because to me these are ahead of their time, And I think just also effects wise, getting back to this, it had to be Donner shot because these effects look good. I thought they were really interesting visually. I thought they were really interesting conceptually, and as you said, It's one of the advantages of having to circumvent Brando is that you had Susanna York and whoever that other bald guy was.
Yeah, like it made it seem like this time it actually seemed like he saved Krypton, or more of Krypton instead of just himself reading a bunch of information out of a book to teach Kal-El. Like he actually had like teachers,
which is kind of meta if you think about Marlon Brando. It's like if you think about Marlon Brando as Kal-El, of course he's going to be like, well, Laura, I only have 10 megabytes of space left. Here, conceive of everything you might want to know about Zod, even though I said to Zod to this Phantom Zone, and here, I'll let you handle the relationships. I'll do the whole pontificating.
I don't that trees poem too, kind of.
Oh my god!
I don't know why he would need to know that, but
yeah, I mean, I mean, it was probably an elective he chose.
Why?
His college.
Why? Yeah, I was gonna say, how did that come about? Because they said in the first one that by the way, Kal-El was sent here. That they did, even if they didn't conceptually know of what a wormhole was, that was the implication. That he traveled thousands of years in a short span of time. Because in the first one they said that Krypton had been long gone, long since gone. There's no doubt in my mind how pissed off Zod was if he had been, even if he had
trapped in that thing for 1,000 years.
Yeah, at least, or even if he did go through the same wormhole, which is probably conceivable. I mean, he's at least spent 30 years in this thing. It piss anybody off. But so if you learn of Earth. But then again, even in the first movie, that doesn't make sense because they're sending him to Earth, and what are they going to say? Well, these people are still, lurking about in the mud, and they have these feudal systems still. But so he'll definitely be a god to them. These people don't even have indoor plumbing, so don't worry about it. He's going to be fine. Their yellow sun will make him immune to the Black Plague, and don't worry about I mean, so yeah, there's a disconnect in the first one too. So
yeah, which I mean, it's gonna. There's going to be even further and further disconnect, I imagine, now going onward. So now we're going to see the balance of how both movies are going to try so hard to be so bad. I know,
we got Richard Pryor coming up next.
Yeah, I would say it's going to be very interesting to see how they match up, because this one, I mean, I have to grade it lower than the first one, Superman. I would say for Superman 2, I have to grade, of course, lower than Superman 1, and for all the right reasons, just for inconsistency, just for plot holes,
spitting in the face of science. Yeah,
and there's so especially space physics. They knew about space. This was what, 82? 80. Okay, so even in 1980, 2001 did a great job with space physics, and that was over 13 years before. I think 68. 68, yeah, 60, yes, around in the 60s. And that one,
and the effects in 2001 still hold up, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are a couple times when you could tell the spaceships are matte paintings, but other than that, the effects are great.
Yeah, they did very good. But I mean, in Superman, just the space physics.
So you cannot speak in space.
You're right.
Even if you could, the guy in the suit would not be able to understand you.
Well, I'm going to say two things about that scene. We discussed this before. Number one, you had the Russians and the Americans working together, which is pretty cool. Yes. And number two, the one astronaut says that he and the Russian astronaut are engaged, and the mission control guy is like, "Well, I thought there was something with you based on your Rorschach tests," which you kind of had this acceptance of that without it being a gay joke. It wasn't. So I was just like, so talk about progressive. I'm like, all right. So you've got four things that were cool. You've got the Lara thing, and you've got the hologram, the hologram thing, and you've got the precursor to gay marriage, and you've got the Russians, the United States. 9 years, was it 9 years, 11 years before the walls came down? Here we go.
Yeah, and on the moon of all the places.
And on the moon,
doing the whole space race was actually Russia against the U.S. and to see both flags, on the moon standing relatively close to each other, but still seeing the camaraderie that there's still the threat of nuclear war and everything, but it's through, terrorism or through, Lex Luthor's character. Like, it's always outside parties, it's not countries.
Yeah, and even the terrorists at the beginning, and, all due respect to current events, this movie was in 1980, French terrorists are holding the Eiffel Tower. But there weren't even some, like, foreign national things. It was like, it obviously was an inside job, but it was probably, the old, we're holding Paris for ransom, and then back to the moon thing, I noticed when the guy who wasn't Ursa or Zod, when he had both the United States and the Russian flags in his hand, he dropped them both at the same time. It was like there was an equality to it. It wasn't like him throwing down the Russian flag, look at the American flag, and throwing it in one direction.
Superman flying with the American flag at the end.
Well, yeah,
to the White House.
Yeah,
which I'll never let you down again, Mr. President. Not Mr. Gorbachev or whatever was president at the time.
Mr. President, I won't let you down again. E.G. Marshall with the, it's not E.G. Marshall. That was obviously, you didn't see the president.
Oh, yeah, it was very obvious.
So that wasn't Donner, that was Lester.
Oh, see, that was very strange. But that was also, like, it kind of goes in the first movie when he says that, why are you here? Or
Truth, justice, and the American way.
In the American way. There's no other but the American way.
Well, that's what I loved about the first one, was that he's like, he goes, truth, justice, and the American way, and, Lois kind of scoffs at him and says, well, you're going to have to, be fighting a lot of effective elected officials or something like that. And it was a nice play on that, because, as we said in the first podcast, that came about, during World War II, when you're trying to create a lot of pro-American sentiment, and then, followed by the Red Scare. Of course, you had Superman, in Truth, Justice, and the American Way, which was about the time people put God in government, so it was nice for that to even in 78 when Donner did that, to kind of, give it a more worldly perspective. And I think you can see it with the moon scene, that there's more of a future looking, more of a universal, not so pro-American, but more pro-humanity. Like it's more optimistic appraisal.
Especially that one line with the president when he talks about how he got permission from everyone, all the world leaders, to effectively surrender to him.
Yeah, and I wanted with Lois in the first one, she scoffs, but it's not like, scoffing at that. It's to kind of like, I wanted to kind of correct what I said before, not to make it look like she was, Donner was poking fun at that, but more, getting along what you said, where it's just like, the United States, America, the president said that he got permission.
Yeah, like it seems that he said, like, within that universe of Superman, the world is in a lot better place than we are right now. Simply because, like, you do not see any infighting between, like you said, there's always, who was it, you? There's always an outside agent.
Yeah, it's not a country. It's usually it's like affiliation of, it's very generic, like, oh, it's terrorist, oh, it's a mastermind, it's a villain of sorts. But in this movie, is humanity collectively looking to Superman, because that was the entity that was coming in was alien, and since he's alien, he's the best one to be able to fight for him, and they have to surrender Earth because that's their last chance. Otherwise, they don't have any.
Mm-hmm. And he was nowhere to be found. He was too busy having his first time.
Oh, can we also bring in one thing that we noticed from the first movie about how Richard Donner suspected hatred of children?
Oh, see,
I looked him up after our last podcast, and he doesn't, as far as IMDb or the other actual Wikipedia, because IMDb is kind of a Wikipedia. There's no listing of him having children. And in the first one, after Superman rescues the little girl's cat, apparently the little girl goes and gets beaten up.
And then we have the son. Then we have the kid today at this time in Niagara Falls getting beat twice.
Yeah.
Once for almost dying, or once for almost falling off, and the second time for almost dying from falling off.
Yeah, and in the interim, his parents are completely ignoring him.
Yes.
So he's playing.
So it's negligence.
We've already established that he's playing at the rail, and he already gets smacked around for that. Then they go and eat cotton candy and looking at the map, totally ignoring him. With precedent's already been set up that the kid's going to be fucking around the rail. Superman has to save him. They're all so worried, and he comes back and they start smacking him around again. So, Mr. Donner, what are we saying here?
And it's funny because Superman doesn't even address. He just turns a blind eye. That's the one thing he cannot save anybody from.
Yeah.
It's not his business, I guess. He can be in the outside world, have roles in government, save crises and everything. But children and their parents, I think that's a little out of his realm.
Seriously,
I wonder if it's like if they're trying to do a thing because he had an upbringing with separate parents or something. Like, what is it about?
I'm kind of wondering if it's not Richard Donner's hatred of children, but hatred of neglectful parents, because in the first one, she's out in the street by herself with the cat, and the parents inside, and the parent yells at her for being outside in the middle of the night, where, this is your kid, you moron. Maybe he's making a statement of that the kids aren't, that it's basically, he's showing bad parenting.
Huh.
Maybe he doesn't hate children.
It's probably better to focus on that than the hating children.
Yeah.
I mean, we are joking. I have no idea, Mr. Donner.
Yeah.
We are not.
But we're definitely.
If you watch these movies, pay attention to those things. Because it was very interesting seeing that. Especially, it was totally out of the ordinary in Superman 1.
But, however, in Lethal Weapon, Murtaugh's got kids, and and they're all lovely people, so he can't hate children. So I'm thinking he's hating, and they're really good family, and they're really good parents, and they're So I'm going to say he's probably more saying that, shitty. He's more of a comment on shitty parenting, and the poor kids have to pay the price for having shitty parents.
I kind of want to keep an eye out now to see if this becomes a running theme, since it's been 2 movies so far.
It's been 2.
So, let's see if 3 and 4 have a kid getting beat up by their parents.
I mean, this is awful to say, but still, it was. I remember somebody's going to be listening to this going, holy shit, I can't believe they're talking about this.
We do not condone
child
violence.
We do not condone child violence, but we also don't condone, being a negligent parent.
That is also true. I mean, if you're going to watch your kid almost fall off in Niagara Falls and then leave him alone again.
Well, I used to work retail, and, I used to work at Borders, and part of my job was as basically the HR, as HR supervisor, whatever. I had to do the training as training supervisor, and part of that responsibility had to be taking care of the children's department, which is a nightmare. And I was in there one time, and I'm cleaning the shelves, and I hear, "Mom, it's happening again." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this kid's gonna puke," and he puked. And I'm sitting here going, "What the fuck is this lady bringing her?" The kid's obviously sick. He's established already that he's thrown up before, and this woman's going to take him to the Borders. Mr. Donner, if you're making a point about, being a responsible parent, point taken. I'm gonna say this is more of a critique on bad parenting.
Yeah. I agree. Although still, I've seen those kids get beat up.
I know. Second we saw him get.
I mean, for all the progressivism that he's going with and everything, maybe he's trying to, make everybody look at themselves and their parenting, which is always a hot topic. You never want to tell people how to, parent their children.
Well, yeah.
Which is why Superman turns a blind eye.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have kids, but I have got 2 dogs. And I'm going to say, as a dog owner, we're very responsible for our dogs, and we also see that, people who aren't responsible for the dogs are bad dog parents. Those are the dogs that get in trouble. And we have 2 pit bulls, and the reason a lot of pit bulls get in trouble is because you've got negligent owners who, they're animals. They're like anything else. Like, they're, nobody, the news isn't full of Pomeranians biting people because they don't, but you're more likely to get injured from a little dog than you are a big dog. The problem is when a big dog bites you, it's 60, 80 pounds, So I'm just letting you know, because now all of a sudden I feel bad about, being negligent parent from somebody who's not a parent. But as somebody who's in charge of a living creature, I understand responsibility. I'm just covering my ass here.
Just in case we get any angry.
What did you say?
Just in case we get any angry emails.
Yeah, if we get angry emails, who the fuck are you? You don't even have kids. Well, you know what? I don't have kids. So I'm speaking as a dog parent about bad dog parents. There you go. Mr. Donner, if you want to put that in your next film, please go right ahead.
But to go back to Superman beating up that guy in the diner, I do like how he kind of developed more of a dark side akin to Batman in the Burton films, because like he's coming right up. First off, he kills Zod, the dumbass big guy whose name I can't recall, just kills himself, and then Lois kills Ursa. Yeah. So like they just bonded over shared homicide, and then like he erases her memory so she doesn't have to live with it. But maybe that's why they broke up. That's why she was in tears.
I killed you, Superman.
I can't live with myself. Like, how am I supposed to live with the fact that Superman kills or something?
Yeah, seriously.
Right? I mean, yeah, we can look at it that way. Yeah, but
he gets that thirst for blood. And
but
I guess
yeah, it's one of this one. Like, vengeance obviously came out, and probably, I mean, a lot of it would have to do with his negligence of not being there. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally when they first walk in the diner, they turn on the TV. He's like, "Where have you been?" Yeah, and they're just like, "Yeah, where you been? Like, this is what's been going on." And
so they were a little iffy on how long he's been away too.
I was losing my virginity in the Arctic. What's
going on?
What's going on? I spent 12 years up there, got nothing but a lecture from my father.
Which is another thing too. Like he gets rid of his powers, and then they just decide that we're gonna hoof it back. Yeah, they flew there. I don't care what anybody says. They flew there. Yeah, you did not take a car.
Yep.
And even if you did have a car, you're in the middle of the Arctic. Like, there's no.
She was in a dress. She was in a summer. Well, I don't know what time was, but she was in a dress, and he was in.
She was in a summer dress.
She was in a summer dress, and he's in khakis and a button down.
Somehow they made it to the diner okay, and then he had a harder time getting back to the fortress after they split up.
Yeah, they made it down right, but he by himself could not even hitch a ride back.
Yep. You gotta walk all the way.
Yeah.
Pay your dues.
There's a lot of people that had to walk home from that fortress. I mean, you got those two, Lex.
Well, Lex, why would you leave? See, that's the other thing. Why would you leave Lex the Fortress of Solitude? Here's arguing one of the smartest men on Earth, even if he's kind of like...
Who's shown an aptitude for figuring out how the system works.
I mean, Christ, he figured out, with a protractor and a ruler about kryptonite.
Who knows what he could do?
Pulled that off camera, and then lo and behold, it's just like, well, I'm gonna leave him in the Fortress of Solitude. And like after you've already shown him how half the shit works anyway.
Yeah. It's like, who's to say he can't even wire that thing so that it gives him Superman's powers? Yeah. The combined powers of what Zod's crew lost.
That should have been Superman. That should have been 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Superman, you left me in the Fortress of Solitude.
It's like, oh, fuck, I thought I forgot something.
Fuck. Did you forget something? Lois, did you drop the green crystal again? God damn it!
He's gonna show up at home, and he left himself a voicemail. It's like, hey, Clark, if you're here, you have to go all the way back to. That means you have to go all the way back to the Fortress of Solitude to let Lex out. It's like, oh.
Ooh, it's been a while. He's gonna be raped. That's another thing too. Like the chamber thing. Like his mom specifically says, "There's no going back," and he's like, "I gotta go back." Okay, let's just go back, and you know what? Cut to Metropolis, and then all of a sudden the music plays, the newspapers start flying, and he's just like...
At first I thought, like, the way he came back, I thought maybe his powers were back temporarily, or he was weakened from before, because he seemed, like, kind of unsure of himself when he got back and he was fighting Zod and them for the first time.
Yeah, and I mean, he got taken out by a bus.
Yeah, well, a bus into a cigarette truck.
It was the cigarettes. The cigarettes.
It might have been the cigarettes.
It's the cigarettes.
Cigarettes contained carcinogen.
See, what happened was...
And kryptonite.
After Lex got a hold of that kryptonite, he just dispersed it into...
Brilliant, yeah.
He used the kryptonite as fertilizer in the tobacco fields.
Mm-hmm. So then people would just be polluting the air with kryptonite clouds. So every time Superman would fly through, eventually, he would just plummet out of the air.
Lois is a smoker.
Yes.
Ooh.
Perfect.
And he knows Lois is his favorite human.
Yeah. And he knows her brand is Marlboro.
There you go.
Wow.
Wow, we figured this one out.
Wow, we should do a Superman 2.5. Between 2 and 3. We got a party going. We got superpowered Lex. And we got the cigarette smoke.
Cigarette conspiracy.
We can rewrite this movie and Batman. We can make Batman Returns more grounded, and we can make this one even more ridiculous.
Yes.
But totally consistent grounded and totally consistent ridiculous.
Of course.
That's what matters.
Yeah. Well, all right. What topics haven't we touched upon, and who haven't we offended? And who
haven't we offended?
And how many people have I not bored by my
bored?
Yeah. Made bored from my boring life stories?
I think we've what topics do we have left? I mean, we got villains cover their motivation well.
Yeah, motivations. We covered plots, like most of the plot of both films, especially what we found.
But what was the plot for the first film?
Duality.
It's freak shit, man. I'm goth. I'm a freak.
Circus of Freaks. And I actually labeled it also a parody of comics because it was just none of the characters were like what they should be from itinerations in the comics, and Superman was. I think Perry were right on point with the Silver Age. That whatever all his powers were allowed by the plot, and what was convenient for them at whatever time.
Do you know what's based on our conversation? It's just like when we're discussing the Batmans, we're discussing how both these movies are failure because obviously Burton, whoever wrote this, doesn't know the material and don't really care for the most part. Mm-hmm. But they're like tonal missed opportunities. Like if you put both together, you've got an even worse film and a slightly better film. But with the Superman films, you've got a near perfect movie. Something that's just really delightful, that's got a plot hole and a really bad poem while flying it. But otherwise, it's a really fantastic movie, and we discussed in the first movie. The first 20 minutes, well, the thing on Krypton and the thing on the Kent farm are probably like short parts of the movie. You get so much information from those.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then coming to Superman 2, which we know behind the scenes,
had a troubled production.
We had actors who would not return for the second one that they had to work around. Brando, who didn't even show up to begin with, period end of discussion. And so it's kind of hard to talk about, I mean, it's easy to definitely say which Superman's better. But like when you're comparing this one against Batman, I'm definitely going to say that Superman 2 is... I would see Superman 2 again before I'd see Batman Returns again. And I definitely want to see the Donner cut, but it's just you've got black and white on one side where you've got a great movie and a movie that's just an absolute mess on, with Superman.
Yeah.
And then with Batman, you've got something that's a really dry, dull mess, and you've got another thing that's just like
a missed opportunity.
Yeah, a mess of missed opportunities, but at least there is pacing on it. And at least you can't. There's differentiation between the acts of the films. Because you said it absolutely right. In the first movie, it's just like there's no. You don't know where we've moved from the first act to the second act to the third act. At least in Batman Returns, giving it that much credit, at least you can. At least there is pacing to the film. Mm-hmm. Maybe they got a better editor for that. It's the only thing that could. It makes sense.
I'm still not showing my vote between the two, Lou. What do you think?
Well, I know we've come down hard on Batman. If you've gone this far and willing to go farther, I'd say a lot of the good things about Batman that we didn't get to mention because we don't talk about it too much is like the lighting is by far one of the best things that I love seeing. It's a very I think it's chiaroscuro, where like very high shadows and everything, which is perfect for Batman, and that was good in the first movie. But also like the focus on the shadow over Batman's mouth and just focusing on his eyes. Mm-hmm. And I think it was great also with how walking, and I mean, one of the best things that I saw, I didn't mention it when we were watching it, but when Michelle Pfeiffer was, or Selena was talking to Shrek about, you know, his plan, when she like hacked into his computer. The lighting in that is you see the exact outline of what her mask is going to be from the lamp, just off of her glasses and everything. And as she's talking to her, like, you see her face start to change because she knows that she's already implicating herself, and you see his face start to change, and he's standing over her. The shadows are going up. It's a very, almost Nosferatu, like exactly like that kind of genre, like very horror, like deep or big shadows and everything. I loved everything stylistically. Like in regards to lighting, wasn't a big fan of the sets. Costume design was fine. One thing I thought was funny was that we saw Batman had a wardrobe of bat suits.
Yeah.
Which was just kind of weird. So it's like, which one am I going to wear today? This is the Monday one. This is the Tuesday one.
But at first I was like sitting here thinking, well, this kind of gave birth to a lot of the, things, the toys and the Lego Batman.
Yeah.
Well, as you'll see in Forever, and there's a deleted scene that I should probably be saving this for later. But like
No, go ahead.
It's like in Forever, like he has a 2 cave system set up where he's got like other suits like for different occasions.
Well, like in some of the I don't remember this too much in the comics, but like in some of the video games, and definitely with the toys, because all toys give Batman as many suits as possible. Mm-hmm. You have to make as many toys. But I didn't see any difference between any of the bat suits. I mean, the one thing I'm going to credit the Burton films for is to give it making the bat suit armor. Because when you're going to bring it to life and you put it into a practical setting, giving it armor makes a lot more sense. Yeah,
it can't be Superman spandex.
Yeah,
like you could easily. I mean, of course, it's very blatant. He doesn't need armor,
right?
Obviously,
but that's really good. But like with the multiple Superman suits or Batman suits, rather, I didn't see any differentiation between the two, any of them. But because by the time you get to Batman and Robin, he's got like a different outfit for every scene, including like ice skates in case you decide to. Well,
and
yeah.
I guess you want to play a pickup hockey game.
That's right.
Suit, challenge some kids.
and that's the other thing I meant to bring up before. Cobblepot. He kept talking about wanting to make Gotham colder. I'm like, isn't that Freeze's MO?
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is this shit, dude?
I wasn't getting the whole snow winter kind of thing. They try to play it really heavy, and I'm just kind of thinking, okay, I'll go. But there was no reason for it really, and he's just make it cold. Maybe because he's a penguin again.
Yeah, because he's
going back to that.
But they literally made him a freak of nature penguin, and he wants to make Gotham cold. But none of that's in his character.
No, it was just kind of just thrown in there.
Yeah, he just wants to be rich and rule the underworld.
Does he? Or what does he want?
Well, not in the movies.
I think he wanted to make.
No, I mean in the movie. What does he want?
It started off, I think, with him wanting to be accepted, but then as we found out, that was more of a front than anything else. So I guess basically he just wanted revenge. He wanted to take the pain that his parents caused him by casting him out off on everybody in Gotham.
Yeah.
This is what's... I just thought of it while you were saying it. This, to me, is the difference between these two movies. And this is why I'm going to give the point to Superman. Superman is a disaster because it was 2 productions and somebody... Much like Selena Kyle's costume, somebody bolted this shit together. Some editor out there in Hollywood somewhere was just like trying to make sense of all this horse shit, and he did the best job he could. And with Batman Returns, it was whoever's vision this shit was. It was not a troubled production. It was whoever decided to make this movie, Burton, the producers, the writer, whoever was behind it, this was a single vision, even if that vision was collective. And Superman 2 was a matter of Donner shot this movie, the studio didn't want to do it, he didn't want to make the changes, they got somebody else in there, half the actors wouldn't come back. I mean, Superman was a construct of a troubled production, and the Batman movies were just troubled productions, you know.
Yeah.
Just on the onset. So I'm giving the point to Superman.
Yeah, for consistency reasons, even though, like you said, with the two different productions and everything, Superman came out with a better product.
Yeah. I'm going to have to agree.
I mean, because the Donner stuff you get is like night and day, but that stuff's so good.
But it's still like... Batman, I know it had its moments. I did enjoy it much more than the first one, but it gets edged out by Superman 2. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you feel nostalgic about Batman Returns, I say watch it again. And watch Superman 2 right after, and you'll see why we're talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are a lot of people that I know. We all have pretty much share some friends, and they're all kind of pissed off at us that we.
Oh, Scott hates us.
Oh, Scott's
yeah,
furious. Yeah, Scott didn't want to talk to me at work. He didn't talk to me about that. Scott, if you're listening, you're probably gonna be like, "Fuck you." By the time he listens to this, he's gonna be the cube in front of me because we work together. He's gonna probably.
It's like it sucks when I tell like other people about this show and then saying how badly we ripped on Batman. And it's just like, really. And then it's just like, I kind of want to punch you in the face right now.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of want to punch Tim Burton in the face.
All I'm going to say is rewatch the movies. And you know what? I'll tell you what. If we did piss you off, do one of two things. Either we're on YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel. And obviously, if you're listening to us on iTunes, go to the YouTube channel. And go to the comment section and bitch us out, or better yet, if you really hate us, write a reaction video. Have
awesome.
That'd be great.
Yeah, please, just
absolutely
bitch us out. Come on, and, we'll bitch you back and tell you you're wrong. But but these are everybody's opinions. But rewatch these movies. I mean, really rewatch Superman the movie. I think Superman the movie is a gorgeous movie.
It is great. Yeah.
There's a plot hole and one or two bad things, but otherwise it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, and I would say, like, if you, the audience has to understand too that we're doing this versus, like, the films are versus each other. We're not trying to do in the whole scope of like comic cinema. We're just doing it, Batman vs Superman, to the Countdown to Justice. These two movies against each other, and we're gonna roll it over to the next one. But we're not trying to make it like, this is the be-all, end-all. Like, we're not saying, Superman 2 is better than, Dark Knight Rises, because we haven't even gotten there yet.
No, this is literally Batman versus Superman with each step by step. Yeah. And it would be really hard to talk about any of the Nolan films against any of the 80s Superman films, or or even Superman Returns, which is supposed to be a direct sequel from Superman 2, or Man of Steel against either the Burton or the Schumachers, because everything, and you take the effects away from it. They're both products of different times.
Yeah.
Different sensibilities. So we're trying to, in this, part of the keeping in the Batman Superman versus, we're also talking all these films are between the 80s and 90s. I guess 70s, 80s, and 90s. Mm-hmm. Which is not too far of a jump. And then the latter part of this series will be taking place after 2000, so everything's going to be much more of an uneven ground.
Yeah. Plus, we have the Bat Nipples to look forward to next.
Oh my god, the Bat Nipples.
That's Batman Robin.
I thought Batman
Forever too.
Oh, it's Batman Forever?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The Batman and Robin has the crotch and butt shots, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's in Forever.
Is that in Forever too? Well,
actually, no. I think it's probably. I wouldn't be surprised with both, but we'll get there. We'll be talking about those.
But the cool thing is, I'm really excited because I have never, besides the money shots that you see on YouTube or things that people make fun of, I have never seen either Superman 3 or Superman 4. It's going to be really interesting.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be
awesome.
Fun.
We didn't watch Batman Returns today for various reasons together. We watched Superman 2 together. But we definitely have to watch the next 4 movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
God.
So I think we should start down. Is that a good time to wrap up?
Yeah, so it's a resounding Superman 1.
2.
So, yeah. So
Superman 2 1.
round 2 goes to Superman. So Superman 2, Batman 0.
Yeah, he's leading off, but we'll see if he can keep that going.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I can't wait till the next 4 movies. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, so let's see. Sorry, I'm just thinking ahead. How much fun this is going to be.
Ah.
But yeah, I guess we're closing out. Thank you for joining us for a second round of Countdown to Justice. Chris?
That's it. Thank you for joining us. I'm looking forward to the next 4 movies. I really am.
Yeah, I hope you guys are too. And thank you for joining us. My name's Louis Duran.
I'm Chris Morgan.
And I'm Rich Perry. We'll see you next time for round 3.
Music and editing by Chris Morgan. This has been a Lost Signals production. All rights reserved.